Now, one of the things that it's kind of hard for us as parents to do and to understand, very often we talk about my kids, our kids. And what happens is that becomes a certain mentality as if we own our kids. And that's a mistake. Okay, we have to view this as Hashem has entrusted us a certain responsibility. And therefore, one of the things we're going to look at today is how we talk to kids and how we sort of treat them. Because what happens is, when we start to understand kids as being our property, they're my kids, then a lot of times we bring out certain bad characters in ourselves that we wouldn't do in front of other adults, but we'll do them to the kids because they're my kids. Okay? Let me give you a few examples. So, for example, there will be people who, you don't see this yet because your kids are young, but your kids get older, and you might see another parent and their kids do more around the house. And now you start to say, well, Johnny, helps his mother a lot more than you do, and you expect now your kid to help more. That really is just a trait of jealousy. And you're just putting it on the kid. Because now you're jealous that you want the help that Johnny gives his mother. Okay? We may have anger issues. So we're going to go, we lay him out on the kid. We may have control issues. Now, we know it's socially unacceptable to try to control somebody else who's an adult. You may find ways to do it another way, but we know it's not acceptable just to try to control people. But with our own kids, because they're my kids, we very often make that mistake and start to try to act to them in a way that would not be socially acceptable to another adult in the name of Chinuch. It's in the name of education. I have to train the kid. Well, I don't know. You train the kid because you have anger, because you have jealousy, because you have control issues, and that's not okay. So what we're going to look at today is two different things. One is we'll look at some techniques, but the idea is going to be to, in a certain sense, to talk to the kid the way you'd want to be talked to. Now, of course, the child's a child. Of course, you can't, it's not the same thing. So, but still, we don't want someone, we get very angry if someone says, you're so stupid. But we could say it to our kids. Or even, not just strong language is stupid. We say, why'd you do that? Well, that's not going to say something like stupid. But still, we don't like when someone says to us and attacks us what we're doing. But we might say to the kid, why did you do this? You always do this. If someone said that to us, we'd freak. We'd freak. How can you say that to me? So we didn't call them a nasty name, but yet we weren't call it. But yet it's a certain blaming or talking to a kid that we think is justified because they're in our control. And that's not going to be the way that we have to talk to the kid. We're talking the way we really would like to be spoken to ourselves as adults, but on their level of what they need as children. Okay, that's one part we're going to talk about. The second part is that, and I think this is a crucial thing. And I whenever I see kids who are acting out, I believe it comes from this following root. And this is maybe where you'll ask me a question on what I just said before. You say, hey, kids need, they don't know yet, they're not trained, how do they know? So let's try this in the second rule here. The second thing is that whenever I see children acting out, in most cases, it comes from fear of having no boundaries. Very often, if a kid does not have boundaries, and they don't know, and the parents don't know how to tell them, this is acceptable, this is not acceptable, then the kid develops very often this crazy, sort of fear, where it's like, I could do anything, and no one could stop me, and that scares the kid. It's the opposite of what people think. If we're too permissive in our way of raising the kid, it doesn't make the kid feel empowered. It makes the kid frightened. And then he'll test the boundaries of how far he or she could go because there's no boundaries here. And now I'm not recommending this technique I'm going to share with you because you'll freak out. And it's against what we said last week about not hitting the kid. But I want to share with you the concept of it. It's not from a Jewish source. But in emergency cases, it works really well. Okay, and I forgot which psychologist created this thing. It works, but it's bizarre. But I'm only telling you no one's at the point where you've gotten to the point of having to do such a thing. This is an emergency measure. But I want you to understand the principle. Okay, I forgot who was the guy who created it. Michael White, maybe. I forgot who the guy who set this up. But logically, it's an interesting concept. The idea like this: you see a kid who is completely out of control, okay, and is acting in weird behaviors and not. So his process was like this. He says, tell the kid that they have to do something inane, totally inane. You come home from school, you take this spoon, I want you to put it on the third tile in the living room. You tell a kid something inane to do, which you expect they're not going to do. And you tell the kid the consequence for not doing it. And generally what he recommends, which I'm not going to get into the concept, we talk about the power of corporal punishment, but they said give him a light hit on his hand. That was his approach to it. The kid comes, he doesn't do it, first day. First person goes and gives him the light. Slap on the hand. In this story. No recriminations, no yelling, no screaming. The next day, the kid won't do it again. Now, the kid's not doing it now at this point because he's just not taking it seriously. But it develops a resistance where the kid stops doing it, and he doesn't want to do it because he's out of resistance with the parent. And this guy's theory was, at a certain point, when the kid listens, then the kid is now understanding that there are consequences and the parameters. Now, this is really something to do when a person's in dire situation, but I want you to understand the concept of it. The concept of it is that when we're the child is not feeling he has the parameters or the consequences for actions, that's frightening to the kid, and the kid will start to act out. The kid is comforted, the child is comforted to feel that there's certain things I can do, certain things I can't do, and there's consistency in response to, and again, we discussed last week, those who weren't here, we discussed the Volba's negative view of using corporal punishment at all, but whatever the consequences are, you got to understand there's going to be, there has to be clear, consistent response to certain behaviors that create the parameter for the child. So what we're going to do today is there's two parts. One is our responsibility to relate to the child in a way he's a human being and he's not our property. And the second is, from the child's perspective, that doesn't mean that this is like, oh yes, Billy, whatever you want to do, it's okay. No, because that's going to freak the kid out. The kid has to know that there are things that are acceptable, not acceptable, and they live in that parameter. They thrive in that way. Okay? So those are the two different dynamics we're going to do. Questions, thoughts on what I said so far? Good? Good.
So the thing about the spoon on the tile, if they continue not to do it and they continue to get the hand slap, what have they learned?
No, at a certain point they give in. At a certain point they do it.
Okay.
Honestly, we did it with one of the children. I'll tell you, we did it with one who we were having a massively difficult time with.
Did it work?
It worked, yeah. It worked.
You did the same?
I did the thing. I did, yeah.
So
I did it with one of the kids. I did it, and what happened was he was just, for various reasons, he was all over the place, and we did it, and not only did it work, but the other behaviors changed. His other behaviors changed because what happened was in the end the lesson was, oh, there are things I can do, things I can't do. and there's response to it, and it becomes a very localized thing.
But was the child able to kind of pass along that, what the punishment was for that specific task to other areas where they may
100%. They
step
did.
out of line?
They did. Now, it requires in the parent, because the part of the problem when you get to that situation is because the parent could have been inconsistent in other things. Then you have to maintain consistency. You can't then go and say, okay, so now I've taught the kid the lesson that there are parameters and there are things and they have to listen to the parameters, and it's not with anger, it's not yelling, there's no yelling or screaming. This is what happens, you know. And we'll talk about consequences in a few minutes. At a certain point, the child then, if the parent does that, and then afterwards they have no consistency and it's back to no rules, they'll be back in the same situation. This is like a reset to get you back. You know, if somebody has not been doing a proper parenting trial with a kid, okay, it's a reset. As I'm saying.
What did you have them do?
I had them do the spoon thing.
Oh.
It was an inane thing. I had them, you know, just, you know, and the kid came on the first day and didn't do it. It wasn't Dafka the first day. It wasn't on purpose. Just like spaced out, you know, like because there wasn't a clear thing. And they would explain. You come home, you pick the thing, you put in the third tile right here. The kid looks like, why am I doing this? And you know, if you do that, very nice. And then, and if you don't, you know, there'll be you will get this on your hand.
But ideally, there should be like a structure and a routine consequence before you ever get to that point.
Yeah, I'm saying that this situation is in a situation where the kid is already acting out. But I'm just trying to show you the concept here. You know, you don't, if we're parenting, you know, with parameters before, and we don't have to ever get to such a thing. But if in a situation, for whatever reasons, many times, you know, and you know, kids are different. You know. This wasn't our first child, and things were different, you know, and for various reasons in his circumstances, you know, he was having a tough time of that at that period of just like getting structure for various reasons. So that just realigns it. That it's not a free-for-all. There are limits. That's good for the kid. That's not bad. That's very, very healthy.
Well, it's good for human beings.
That's right.
I mean, we thrive with rules. We thrive with. I mean, the Torah is exactly that. I mean, and that's
Right.
essentially what you're trying to do as
Yeah.
a parent is to guide them and to give them boundaries, roles, responsibilities, and to teach them those types of things. And the world is not anarchy,
Right.
and anarchy is a scary thing
Right.
for humans and for
Being-
children.
Exactly right. And it's the opposite of what people live, and therefore the way they parent. And so, but again, it's not, you didn't do the thing, there's nothing. And we're going to see consequences, we're going to talk about today, is a crucial thing. We'll see the mistake of people trying to yell and scare the kid or to avoid the consequences. Let a person, you know, understand. The kid's got to develop, as human beings develop. If I don't, you know, go to bed on time, I will not be at work tomorrow functioning normally. Do it once, do it twice, you know. Don't go and rescue the kid every time. Let the kid understand, this is the consequence. I'm not angry, but you know, if you don't go to sleep on time, then you're tired, then you fall asleep in the class, and the teacher gets upset. That's what happens.
Natural consequences.
That's a consequence. Yeah.
I remember, like, sometimes it would be a real struggle to be like, you know, wear your coat. You have to put on a coat. And, you know, they wouldn't want to wear their coat. And I'm like, it's freezing outside. You have to wear a coat. They don't want to wear a coat. There was some point my husband sort of said, like, so they won't wear a coat. And then they'll be cold. And then they'll want to wear a coat. I'm like, oh, right. You know, it was like natural consequence. Much better learning than me screaming and beating them over the head.
I mean,
you have to wear
again,
a coat.
if the kid is
Call the weather
Right.
number.
Ruby does not like wearing hats. He will not wear a hat. Yesterday was freezing, and on the way to shul, he wore a hood. Didn't pull it off once
Mhm.
because it was cold.
Right. Again, you have to.
Better learning
You have to.
That's it.
We'll get to it. You got to be. You got to figure. You know, if the kid is, you know, you can't. Obviously, you have to use judgment here. The kid can't be, you know, 3 years old and well, okay, learn how to play matches the hard way.
Right.
You got to figure out what you can, but within the parameters. Okay. So now, you guys, have you looked at any like parenting books that you look at, or who do you look at?
Every day.
Which people
Which
do?
ones?
The toddler book, it's called
Seniors.
Happiest Toddler on the Block, it's really good.
So here is someone that I recommend. I couldn't find the books last night because I haven't used the books in a while, so I'm maybe a little rusty on this technique. But it's fantastic. It's a guy named Chaim Ginot. You ever hear of Chaim Ginot? This book, guy is a psychologist called Chaim Ginot, and he's got a book called Between Parents and Children. It's called between child and parent, I think, or something like that. Chaim Ginot, and then his two students who used to do these seminars with him, named Faber and Maslich. And there's a great book, How to Speak So Children, How to Talk So Children Will Listen, How to Listen to Kids Will Talk. Say it again. How to talk.
How to speak or talk, how to speak to your children so
How to speak so children
will listen, and how to listen so children will speak.
Talk.
Talk.
Really, very, very, very good stuff.
It's one
He-
book, and
That's one
it's
book.
a very good book.
You know, and they're all basically taking his shita, his approach, and applying it. It's really quite good stuff. I'm going to give you some of the basic principles, but it's quite good, and it goes through a lot of these things. So I would recommend it's really very, very I mean. It's sort of an old shita, but it's still done today because it really works well. It's very much, and it's not a trick. It's not a technique. It's what I just told you. It's both things. It's relating to the child as a person, and yet it's giving them parameters in a way it's not attacking. Okay, that's the key. All right. So the first thing is not to deny the child's feelings. Okay. Not to do that. It sounds simple, but it happens all the time. I hate Bobby. We don't hate, but he hates Bobby. So why are you saying we don't? That's terrible. How could you hate Bobby? Bobby's so nice to you. So you got a problem right now because you just confuse the child. Again, it doesn't mean we want to teach the kid not to hate. Okay, I understand that. But if you deny the child's feelings that they've said to you, you know, I'm so angry, I want to do this. Oh, you're not. I really don't, I don't like this food. No, you do. You really do like it. You just don't know, you just haven't tasted it. You got a problem right now. Because what happens is, you've created in the child this place where they're confused. First of all, you won't see it when the kid's 2 or 3, but when the kid's 12, they won't tell you anything anymore. They won't tell you anything. Because why would they? Because they feel a certain thing, and everything they feel, you tell them, don't feel that. So, I want to do this, but the parent doesn't accept anything that I want to do, and they just tell me that I don't want to do that. So that when they get older, they're not going to tell you anything. Or when they're younger, so they're confused about what they actually feel. So never deny the child's feelings or their experience. Don't deny it, and don't ignore it. Don't be like it's nothing. No, you got to say back to them, wow, it sounds like you're really, really very much angry at Bobby. Wow, what happened? You got to, again, I'm not saying that you want to keep the kid, you want to train the child, but it is so common that it's so common, and if you're not conscious of it, you'll realize that you know, we're constantly doing it, okay? And your child could start to talk, or even when the child's not talking, but there's certain things they want, you know, like Ruby's not doesn't want a hat. No, you should be wearing a hat. He doesn't want to wear a hat. So okay, so let's take it from there. So never deny or ignore the child's feelings. Work with it. Say it back to them. You sound, if I understand you, you're really, really angry at Bobby. You feel hatred for Bobby. What happened? And then if he talks about it, or then you could deal with trying to get the emotion directed, understood, refelt, but you can't deny it, because then you deny the child. What, Rachel?
Yeah, I mean, I was just gonna say, like, we've kind of been trying this for the last couple of months, the happiest toddler on the block, this book that we've kind of been going off of, and it kind of compares, especially kind of relating it to us, because we all have little kids, everyone in this
Right.
room here, under 3 years of age. So it says to kind of compare toddlers to almost like cavemen, because they have short attention spans, and they get angry really quick, and they have all these emotions and don't know how to express themselves. And so it kind of says the same kind of thing, like you're supposed to talk to them like, Noah mad, Noah sad, like, I know you're mad right now, but we have to, put our toys away before we go to the next toy. And we've been trying that for the last couple of months, and maybe it's just the age, but I really don't, for us, it's not really working that well.
Right.
But you're giving him the words, and you're giving him like the association. I think it's just setting it up, like, cause I feel the same, like Ruby also, it's like, I sat on the kitchen floor for 10 minutes until he threw away a banana that he had thrown on the floor, cause he
I mean,
wanted
we
to go
do the same
something else.
thing, Rachel, we do the same thing.
Yeah, it's just,
But it's
You're
like,
doing-
it's
yeah,
not.
you're just setting the foundation. I
Yeah.
mean, like, you don't see a house yet, you just see like a concrete pit and you're like, this is awful. But like, I think it's good.
Yeah.
Cause I've read the book also. I think it's good. I think it's just giving them the words, giving them like the cues, and so that way,
Yeah.
like, when they can start talking, then
Yeah.
they can tell you, like,
Yes.
I'm angry, and then you're like, oh, thank you for telling
It's just like I read these blogs and moms are like, oh, we do that and it totally works, like, and the kid stops crying immediately. And I'm like, what?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
What
But
are you
some of the stuff some of the stuff that people say is probably a little bit exaggerated.
Yeah.
But like they're saying right now, when the child is at that point, there is limited things you could do. You want, but I mentioned this last week, and that's why sometimes some of the educational, important things are not meant to be shoved on a very young child. What you're teaching the child more than anything by not freaking out at the child is that, okay, when the kid is subconsciously learning, when I get older, I will be like that. If you're freaking out at the kid, then what you're teaching him is that not only am I out of control, but that's the way I'm supposed to stay out of control. So the lessons that they get, it's very hard for them now because they don't have, not only words, they don't have the concepts. So there needs to be, unfortunately, a lot of patience with toddlers because, there's a point where it's limited, what exactly they can get. But that's why you're gonna have to limit their options. You have to also, we're gonna see in a minute, you're gonna have to make it that certain things happen so fast they don't really think about them. We've gone from here to there. Yeah. Okay. Like you can't let them be in a situation where there's no, you're moving the structure in a way that you're not enabling as much confusion for them.
Well, it's easy for the parent to, in a somewhat of a rewarding the child for their outburst because you just give them what they're asking for.
Right.
And that's not good
Right.
because then they continue to
Right.
expect that and think about it. And if you, every time they have an outburst, it's a big test for how you're going to manage it, how quickly you're going to manage it, or how
Right.
slowly you're going to manage it.
Yeah, 100%.
My mom had something that she said all the time when we were growing up, and I think it's really something that I've always thought is being spoiled isn't what you get, it's how you get it. And just like you see people that are incredibly wealthy and not spoiled, and you see people who are incredibly poor and absolute spoiled brats.
Right.
And it's not what you get, it's not the quantity, it's not the quality, it's how you get it. If you scream and you still get it, then you're spoiled. So that's
Right.
something that
That's a good point.
we've been consistent in.
Right. Good. So first thing again, not to deny, to understand this is the kid's feelings, work with it. Second thing we have is and this is when you get, now it's easier when the kids get old, you have to be careful. You do not want to reject the person rather than the behavior. You don't ever want to say, no. Hitting is not acceptable. okay? It's very, and this comes in so many different forms, because that's very confusing for the child. I'm not okay. You know, you always want to be, we're saying that this behavior is not acceptable. You are wonderful, you're great. And again, it's all in terms of the loving environment. But you have to tell the kid, this behavior is not acceptable. That's the second point. Third point, try to avoid every, always, never generalization statements, okay? It's very,
Should we always do that?
yeah, always, never say never. So you gotta be careful with that, because it's very easy to say when you're frustrated, you keep doing this. I didn't say the word never there, or always, but that's what it implies. You always do this. You keep doing this. That's not good. That's not good, because then already now you're creating a pattern where the kid now says, okay, this is who I am. And you're actually making a worse problem for yourself, because that kid says, this is who I am. So you don't want to do that. You don't want to say that, you know, hitting is not acceptable. Not you always hit, right? Hitting is not acceptable, okay? So it's accepting the emotions. We're talking about the behavior problem of the child, not getting into generalizations. Now, the next point that we started with earlier, dependency creates hostility. If you are raising your kid in such a way that they stay constantly dependent on you, they will be angry and hostile when they get older. Okay? You really need to foster the child's ability to be independent. And that really is the thing about consequence also. It's one of the best places you see it. Be smart. Let the kid, an age-appropriate thing, get the consequence. I know we had a thing there with, you know, on driving the kids, this and that, and, you know, God, we have to get ready, you know, we're leaving, you know, we have to go to school. So, we're leaving at 7:30. If you're there, then great. If not, you know, you know? And all it took was one time that one of my kids who was coming out late every single time, didn't take any yelling or screaming, one time they came out and we weren't there.
How old are they?
Oh, it wasn't a 3-year-old.
I know Dad.
They all stayed home by themselves.
No, I know Dad.
Yeah, it was 12, whatever. So it took one time. It took all the screaming and yelling, come on. It took one time.
What if they don't care about school?
So then you
You know
gotta
what I'm saying?
make sure the consequences is a
Yeah.
real consequence. But also people make the mistake in school, you know, I don't wanna be the bad guy in school. Let the teacher and principal be the bad guy. You know, why do I have to go and like, hey, I'm on your team, child, you know? It's the principal that's gonna be getting you in trouble, and I can't always save you from that, you know? So you want your kid to think that to understand you're on their team. But if you keep coming in and rescuing them at every second, then you got a problem. Because what happens is now you're the rescuer, and then when you don't rescue them, it's your fault. And if you do rescue them, they'll learn the consequence. Let them get the consequence of the society. So in this case, this child was very unhappy to be missing school. Because they're going to fall behind, and then the teacher was going to say, where were you, and the amount of absences. So there was consequences that the school had already set up. You know, by the way, in the you know, we'll talk about as the kids. We should talk about this probably soon about schoolings of Georgia, how we feel about them and this and that, because we might need to do some other things. But one school that I like is Tamima. I like Tamima. Tamima really understands this consequence thing. There's no yelling and screaming about anything. Oh, this is a. You know, you have a certain amount of times you can miss. You could actually cut class if you have not met your quota of missing time. That's okay. But if you miss this, is a consequence, and they all know it. You know, there's no yelling and screaming, just consequence. But that's empowering the child to go and to become independent. It really is. And again, that's our goal: moving the kid to become independent. Now, therefore, going back to this thing.
Well, kind of resembles real life.
Yeah, yeah. But what happened, and that's a problem today. The problem today is that we don't experience real life because, we find ways to get out of it or ways to this and that, so we don't often get the people as adults don't realize the consequence. If you're 25 years old and you're living in your mommy and daddy's basement still, which people are doing, then you don't understand the consequence of losing a job.
Or buying your own food.
Yeah, that's right.
Thank
And
you.
the parents, it's the same pattern. It's the same pattern that the kid is doing when he's 25 that he was doing when they were 4. It's the same thing. You gotta let the kid become independent. Now, but again, going back, this is for toddlers too, and it's for older kids. You gotta still limit their choices. Okay, you can't go and make it a free-for-all. So the very simple technique, but it works, and the principle is true. You say to the kid in the morning, "Do you want cornflakes or Rice Krispies?" It's great. Not what do you want for breakfast? That's the wrong question. That's the wrong question. Because you're never getting out of that. Because, I got so many choices, I can't choose.
Noah walks over to the fridge and demands it to be open so he can pick.
Wait till he can open it himself.
Yeah,
That's
what we
why we
have.
have a little
That's
baby
why
lock.
you should just lock it.
We bottle lock, we need our own.
Yeah, as I have
Maybe
people.
she'll
I'll
make
give
this
you
very
another
simple.
example. The Gemara says that whatever is in a shot of the eye is the Yetzer Hara has a control of. Whatever your eye never sees, you don't have
Out
a.
of sight,
Yeah,
out of mind.
right, that's right. So you see these people with a little kid, and they have Coke on the table. The kids, I want Coke, I want Coke, I want Coke. I'm like, and the parents are like, no, you can't have Coke. You already had 1.5 cups. You can't. I'm like, take the Coke and put it on the
Meanwhile,
table.
they're drinking it.
Yeah, right. That's also true. But take the Coke, put it off the table, and that helps quite a bit because the kid doesn't see the Coke.
Yes.
You have to go and give them limited choices, okay? Now, this one Gino talks about, they do it very well. I'm a little out of experience, I haven't done it in a while, my kid's a little older now, but it works very well, where instead of giving a negative personal message, you're a slob, that's attacking. Your room is a mess, clean your room up. He just goes and makes an observation. I see a messy room. I see a messy room. And lets the kid connect the dots. It has to be within a certain parameter. But if you make an observation, and the kid is already learning a certain level of responsibility, and is feeling good as being a accepted young person in the house. Right? When a parent has a second child, they should make sure that the first one is the big helper, is going and bringing the diaper, because now the older child is in collusion with the parent as being the caretaker. That gives them a place. Instead of them, I'm pushed out now, that little Bobby is the one who gets all the attention. No, I'm mommy's helper right now. So the child's learning this independence, and competence. So you want to say, instead of, your room is a mess, which is a negative personal behavior, you're a slob, which is attacking, you want to say, I see a messy room here. And as the child wants to please the parent, understands that I have a way to do it, the child's going to connect the dots and say, okay, I want to go and to clean the room up. That's something, and you look at it, you get these books, you see them more in detail, but it's a very, very good technique. Last one here is attach things
Can I ask
to...
a question about that?
Yeah.
So if you say that, is it going to be that they're gonna clean it, or would you say, follow up, let's clean it together, so then you model cleaning it together, and then the next time they would do it on their own?
Age appropriate.
Age appropriate.
No,
But if you have
age
to,
appropriate.
you have to see. In a certain point, you could
I
say
don't know if
that.
some kids will like,
No, it has
oh, they're telling me it's a messy room.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Right. It has.
Woo!
Yeah, right. It has to be built up where we clean the room. Okay, and I'm tied to the next rule. The next rule is also there's certain rules you want to say, like you want to give rules in a way that you connect things. Okay, so the example he says is if the person hits the little sisters are not for hitting. It's a rule. So you want to get parameters here. So you're right. If the kid doesn't know that messy rooms are bad, then they're gonna say, oh, thank you, I'm glad you see, I see messy room too, that's great. But you know, like I had last week with one of my kids who is I know is a certain problem he's having about doing something independently, and I sat down and I did his homework with him instead of telling him do your homework. And the reason why I did that was because it was like so massive of a job in his mind that to go in to tell him to do it, it wasn't getting any place. I sat down and I said, let's knock it off fast. And we knocked it off in like 8 minutes, what he thought was gonna be 2 hours he was procrastinating about. So I've already done it once. Now there's a lesson that's already a precedent that's been set. So that's giving the parameters, saying the negative statements, but not in an attacking way. Let the kid attach to certain expectations and rules. Okay, we have to finish up now. But again, we teach our kids responsibility. Okay, we're trying to move them to be responsible. And we want to get consistency. Whatever you don't have to be. Don't be, especially when the kids are young. Don't make ironclad things every single time. Don't make everything about them. But when you have something that you're sticking by, you got to stick by it. Okay, you got to never with rancor, never with anger, never with screaming. But this is the consequence. This is what we do, because consistency is going to be an incredible. A crucial aspect in the child's understanding of these parameters, these rules that we create, these expectations. And the last thing that Rav Volba points out is one of the greatest responsibilities for a parent for a child is to daven. That's why I point that out. He brings that as what he says that it's one of the most important things that a parent is responsible is to always to daven for their kids' development success. Okay? Very interesting way he puts it, and he has a whole chapter about talking about, you know, that's really an expectation that we have. But that is, and that will give you a blessing, because you can't, and you're not able to control your kid, and you don't want to. We want to give them the power to be able to develop themselves. But so therefore, you need siyat d'shmaya, you need Hashem's help to make sure the kid grows in the right way. So ask for it. All right.